My name is Tess Brennan. I'm 34 years old. I'm a real estate developer in Boston, Massachusetts. I've built apartment complexes, renovated historic buildings, and turned neglected properties into homes for hundreds of families. I know the value of a house. I know what it costs to build one, to sell one, to lose one. But there's one house I never built. One house I didn't lose. One house that was taken from me before I was old enough to understand what it meant to have something and watch it slip away. When I was 19 years old, my father gambled away our home. Not metaphorically, not in a he made bad investments kind of way. He took the deed to the house my mother had inherited from her grandmother, the house where I took my first steps, where my mother taught me to bake bread in a kitchen that smelled like yeast and cinnamon, where I fell asleep to the sound of wind through the maple tree outside my window, and he put it on a poker table. He lost it in one night of cards, one night of whiskey, one night of thinking he could win back everything he'd already lost. He couldn't. He never could. And my mother, the woman who had loved him since high school, who had worked double shifts at the diner to pay the bills he didn't bring home, who had hidden the eviction notices from me so I wouldn't worry. She looked at him across the kitchen table the next morning and said, "I want you gone by the time Tess comes home from school." He was gone, the house wasn't. But it would be. 3 months later, a man in a suit knocked on our door. He handed my mother a stack of papers. She read them. She didn't cry. She sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where my father had told her he was sorry 1,000 times, and she stared at the wall. "We have to leave," she said, "by the end of the month." I was 19. I was a sophomore in college, home for the summer, working at the same diner where my mother worked, trying to save enough money to buy textbooks for the fall. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand how a house that had been in my mother's family for 3 generations could be taken away because of one night of cards. But that's what happened. That's what my father did. 15 years later, I walked into a bank in the town where I grew up. I sat across from a loan officer. I signed a check. And I bought that house back. I bought it with money I earned, money I saved, money I built from nothing. I walked out of that bank with the keys in my hand, the same keys my father had handed over to a stranger 15 years earlier, the same keys my mother had cried over in the dark when she thought I was asleep. I held them. I held them in my palm. They were cold. They were heavy. They were mine. Before I tell you what happened when I walked back into that house, when I opened the door and smelled the dust and the silence and the ghosts of everything I'd lost, I need you to understand what it cost me to get there. I need you to understand what my father took from us, and I need you to understand how I built myself back from nothing. If you've ever lost something you thought would always be yours, drop a heiter in and dwell in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who else has had to rebuild. Let me take you back. To a small town in western Massachusetts. To a house on Maple Street with a porch swing and a maple tree in the backyard. To the last summer I ever thought of that place as home. The town was called Ashland. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone. Where the high school football games were the biggest event of the week. Where the diner on Main Street had been serving the same menu for 50 years, where families had roots that went back generations. My mother's family had been in Ashland since 1922. Her grandmother, Eleanor, had bought the house on Maple Street with money she saved from working at the textile mill. She was 19 years old. She was alone. She had nothing but a small inheritance from her mother and a determination to own something that no one could take from her. She bought the house for $800. $800. I think about that sometimes. When I'm looking at properties worth millions, I think about Eleanor, a young woman with calloused hands and a fierce jaw, signing the papers that would keep her family anchored to that street for 3 generations. My mother inherited the house when Eleanor died. She was 23. She had just married my father, a man with a quick smile and slow hands, and a charm that made everyone in town forgive him for things they shouldn't have forgiven. My father, Daniel Brennan, was a gambler. That's what they called it in Ashland. He's a gambler. It sounded almost romantic, like he was a man who took risks, who lived on the edge, who might hit it big one day and make all his problems disappear. But there was nothing romantic about it. There was nothing romantic about coming home to find him at the kitchen table, a deck of cards in his hands, his eyes red, his breath sour. There was nothing romantic about the envelopes that came in the mail, the ones my mother hid before I could see them. There was nothing romantic about the way he promised, over and over, that he was done, that this was the last time, that tomorrow he would be the man she deserved. I was 12 years old the first time I realized my father was a liar. He had promised to take me to the county fair. We had planned it for weeks. He was going to take me on the Ferris wheel, buy me cotton candy, let me stay up late to watch the fireworks. I was so excited I couldn't sleep the night before. The next morning he wasn't there. My mother said he had to go to work. I didn't believe her. I could see it in her face, that look she got when she was trying to protect me from something she couldn't protect me from. I found him 3 hours later. He was at the American Legion Hall, 2 blocks from our house, sitting at a card table with 3 men I didn't know. There was money on the table, lots of it. More money than I had ever seen in one place. I stood in the doorway. I watched him. He didn't see me at first. His face was focused, intense, the way it never was at home. He was alive in a way I had never seen him alive. Then he looked up. He saw me. His face changed. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes that I didn't recognize. Shame, fear, regret. I don't know. I was 12. I didn't have words for what I saw. Tess, he said, baby. I was just, you promised, I said. You promised you would take me to the fair. He stood up. He reached for me. I stepped back. I'll make it up to you, he said. I'll take you next weekend. I promise. I didn't believe him. I never believed him again. That was the pattern of my childhood. My father making promises, my father breaking them, my mother smoothing things over, making excuses, pretending that this time would be different, and me, watching, learning, deciding that I would never be like either of them. I threw myself into school, into grades, into a future that didn't depend on anyone else. I got a scholarship to the State University. I left Ashland when I was 18, and I thought I was free. But my mother wasn't free. She was still in that house, still working double shifts at the diner, still waiting for my father to come home, still believing that someday he would change. I called her every week. I told her about my classes, my friends, my plans. She listened. She was proud of me. I could hear it in her voice. How's Dad? I'd ask. Same, she'd say. And that was all. That was everything. I didn't go home that summer. I got a job on campus, working in the admissions office. I told myself I was saving money. I told myself I was building a future. But the truth was, I couldn't go back to that house. I couldn't sit at that kitchen table and watch my mother pretend that everything was fine when it wasn't. I went home for Thanksgiving. My father was there. He was thinner. His hands were shaking. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at my mother. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table, and he stared at his hands. How's school? He asked. Fine. That's good. A pause. Doing good, Tess. You always were. I didn't answer. What was there to say? He had been saying things like that my whole life, words that cost him nothing, words that he used to fill the silence, to make himself feel like he was a father, when he had never been anything close. My mother served dinner. We ate in silence. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. After dinner, my father went out. He said he was going to get cigarettes. My mother and I washed dishes. She handed me a plate. Her hands were chapped from the dish soap, from the diner, from years of work that had worn her down but never broken her. Mum, I said, why do you stay? She didn't answer for a long time. The water ran, the plates clinked, the clock on the wall ticked. Because this house is mine, she said finally, because my grandmother bought it, because your father can take everything else, but he can't take this. This is mine. I looked at her hands, at her face, lined with worry and exhaustion and a stubbornness I hadn't seen before. Then why do you let him stay here? I asked. She didn't answer. She turned off the water, she dried her hands, she walked out of the kitchen. I didn't ask again. The call came in March. I was in the library studying for finals. My phone buzzed. My mother's name lit up the screen. I stepped outside to answer. Tess. Her voice was strange, flat, not her voice at all. Mum? What's wrong? Your father. She stopped. I heard her breathing. I heard her trying to find words that didn't exist. Mum, tell me. He took the house, Tess. He took it. He gambled it away. He put the deed on a poker table, and he lost it. It's gone. I sat down on the library steps. The sun was setting. The campus was quiet. I could hear my mother breathing on the other end of the line. How? I said. How could he? It wasn't his. It was yours. It was Grandmother Eleanor's. He couldn't. He forged my signature 6 months ago. I didn't know. I didn't. Her voice broke. There's a man coming tomorrow with papers. We have to be out by the end of the month. End quote. I closed my eyes. I saw the house on Maple Street, the porch swing, the maple tree, the kitchen where my mother taught me to bake bread, the stairs where I fell and scraped my knee when I was 5, the bedroom where I dreamed of leaving. Where will you go? I asked. I don't know. She stopped. I heard her crying, not the quiet tears she cried when she thought I wasn't listening. Something else, something that sounded like a life falling apart. Come here, I said. Come to Boston. You can stay with me. I can't leave. The house is gone, Mom. It's gone, and he's not worth staying for. She didn't answer. She didn't say anything for a long time, and then, quietly, she said, I know. I went home the next weekend. The man with the papers had come. My mother had signed them. There was nothing else to do. The house wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to a man named Vincent Russo, a man my father owed money to, a man who didn't care about Eleanor, or the maple tree, or the kitchen where I learned to bake bread. My father wasn't there. He had left the morning after the call. He didn't leave a note. He didn't leave a forwarding address. He just disappeared, the way he had always disappeared, only this time he took everything with him. My mother was packing. She was putting her grandmother's china into cardboard boxes. She was wrapping the plates in newspaper, carefully, the way she had been taught to wrap things that mattered. I stood in the doorway. I watched her. Mum, I said, let me help. She looked up. Her face was wet. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were the same eyes that had looked at me across the kitchen table when I was 12, when I asked her why she stayed. You're not going to end up like me, she said. You're not going to end up with nothing. I knelt beside her. I took the plate from her hands. I wrapped it in newspaper. I put it in the box. I'm not going to end up like you, I said, because you didn't end up with nothing. You ended up with me. She started to cry. I held her. We sat on the floor of the kitchen, surrounded by boxes, and we held each other. The movers came on a Saturday. They packed the rest of the furniture, the couch where I had fallen asleep watching movies, the table where we had eaten Thanksgiving dinner, the bed where my mother had slept for 30 years. I watched them carry it out. I watched them load it into a truck. I watched them drive away. My mother stood on the sidewalk. She was holding a cardboard box. Inside was her grandmother's china, wrapped in newspaper, packed carefully, the only thing she had left that mattered. You ready? I asked. She looked at the house, at the porch swing, at the maple tree, at the windows that had been hers for 30 years. No, she said, but I'm leaving anyway. We got in my car, I drove, I didn't look back. I couldn't. My mother looked back. I saw her in the rearview mirror, turning in her seat, watching the house get smaller and smaller until it was nothing but a speck in the distance. Then she turned around, she faced forward, she didn't look back again. We moved to Boston. My mother got a job at a diner near my apartment. She worked the early shift, the one that started at 4 a.m., the one no one else wanted. She said it didn't matter. She said she had worked worse. I went back to school. I finished my degree. I got a job at a real estate firm. I learned the business from the ground up. I learned how to buy properties, how to renovate them, how to sell them. I learned how to make money from the thing that had taken everything from us. I never forgot the house on Maple Street. I thought about it sometimes when I was walking through properties that other people had lost. I thought about Eleanor, who bought it with $800. I thought about my mother, who lost it to a man who couldn't stop playing cards. I thought about myself, the girl who watched it disappear in the rearview mirror. I promised myself I would buy it back, someday, when I had enough money, when I was enough. The years passed. I worked. I saved. I built a reputation. I left the firm and started my own company. I bought buildings that other people thought were worthless and turned them into places people wanted to live. I made money, more money than I ever thought I would make. My mother watched. She was proud of me. She never said it, but I could see it in her face. The way she looked at me when I came home with another contract, another deal, another building that was mine. "You're like her," she said once. We were sitting in my apartment, drinking coffee, watching the snow fall on the city. Like who? Your grandmother, Eleanor. She was fierce. She didn't let anyone take what was hers. And when someone tried, she took it back. I looked at her. Is that what I'm doing? Taking it back? She smiled. It was a small smile, tired, but real. That's what you've always been doing, she said, since you were a little girl, taking back what he took from us. 15 years after I watched that house disappear in the rearview mirror, I walked into a bank in Ashland. I had done my research. I knew who owned the house now. A holding company, a corporation that had bought it from Vincent Russo years ago, after he went to prison for running an illegal gambling operation. The house had been rented out for years. It had been neglected. It needed work. The roof was leaking. The porch swing was gone. The maple tree was still there. I made an offer. The company accepted. I signed the papers. I wrote a check. The loan officer handed me the keys. They were on a simple key ring, silver, worn. The same keys my mother had carried in her purse for 30 years. The same keys my father had handed over to a stranger 15 years earlier. I held them. I held them in my palm. They were cold. They were heavy. They were mine. I walked out of the bank. I walked to my car. I drove to Maple Street. The house was there. It was older. The paint was peeling. The porch sagged. The windows were dirty. But it was there. It was still there. I got out of the car. I walked up the path. I stopped at the front door. I thought about Eleanor, about her calloused hands and her fierce jaw, about the day she signed the papers for this house, a young woman with nothing but a small inheritance and a determination to own something that no one could take from her. I thought about my mother, about the way she looked at the house in the rearview mirror, about the way she never looked back again. I thought about my father, about the promises he made and the promises he broke, about the man who could never stop taking, even when he had already taken everything. I put the key in the lock. I turned it. The door opened. The house smelled like dust, like time, like something that had been waiting for someone to come home. I walked inside. I stood in the entryway. The floorboards creaked under my feet, the same floorboards that had creaked when I was a child, running down the hall trying to be quiet so I wouldn't wake my father. I walked to the kitchen. The cabinets were empty. The counter was covered in dust, but the window was the same, the one my mother used to open when she was baking, letting the smell of bread drift out into the yard. I stood there. I stood in the kitchen where my mother had cried when she found out the house was gone. I stood in the kitchen where I had learned to bake bread. I stood in the kitchen that was mine again. I didn't cry. I don't know why. I thought I would. I thought I would feel something huge, something overwhelming, something that would break me open, but I didn't. I felt something else, something quiet, something steady, something that felt like a door closing and a door opening at the same time. Here's where I need to pause, because what I did next, how I told my mother, how I showed her the house, how I gave her back something she thought she had lost forever, that's the part of this story that I didn't expect. That's the part that changed everything. If you've ever lost something and found it again, type "found" in the comments. Let me know you understand. I stood in the kitchen of the house on Maple Street for a long time. The dust was thick on the counters, the windows were streaked with dirt, the floorboards creaked under my weight, but the bones of the house were still there. The things that made it my house, the way the morning light came through the east window, the way the back door stuck in the summer humidity, the way the stairs groaned in the middle, those things hadn't changed. I walked through the rest of the house slowly, the way you walk through a museum, touching things that aren't yours to touch, except this time, everything was mine. The living room was smaller than I remembered. When you're a child, the rooms where you grow up seem enormous. They contain your whole world. But standing there now, I could see the truth. It was a modest house, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that opened into a dining room, a front porch that needed new boards, a backyard with a maple tree that had grown so tall its branches scraped the roof. But it was mine. It was mine again. I sat on the stairs where I had sat when I was 7, waiting for my father to come home from wherever he had gone. The stairs where I had hidden when my parents were fighting, pressing my hands over my ears so I wouldn't hear. The stairs where I had told my mother I was leaving for college and she had held my hand and said, "Go, don't look back." I looked at the key in my palm, the metal was warm now from my skin. I closed my fingers around it. 15 years. 15 years of working, saving, building, 15 years of telling myself that I didn't need this house, that I had made something of myself without it, that I was free. And now, sitting on these stairs, I knew the truth. I had never stopped wanting it. I had never stopped needing it. I had never stopped being the girl who watched it disappear in the rearview mirror. I pulled out my phone. I called my mother. "Tess," she said. Her voice was tired. It was always tired. She worked the early shift at the diner, the one that started at 4 a.m., and she never complained. "You're calling early. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I need you to come to Ashland." A pause. "Ashland? Oh, why would I go back to Ashland? I have something to show you." "Tess, I haven't been back in 15 years. I don't— please. Just this once. I'll pick you up. We'll drive together." She was quiet for a long time. I heard her breathing. I heard the sounds of her apartment in the background, the hum of the refrigerator, the click of the clock on the wall, the same clock she had brought from the house, one of the few things she had saved. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, I'll come." I picked her up the next morning. She was waiting on the steps of her apartment building, a small bag in her hand, her coat buttoned against the cold. Her hair was grey now, her hands were still chapped from the dish soap, from the diner, from years of work that had worn her down but never broken her. She got in the car. She didn't ask questions. She looked out the window as we drove, watching the city give way to suburbs, the suburbs give way to highway, the highway give way to the rolling hills of western Massachusetts. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say, "I bought the house, Mum. It's ours again." But the words wouldn't come. I didn't know how to say something that big. I didn't know how to give back something that had been taken. We drove in silence. The radio played something soft. The sun was rising behind us, lighting up the hills, turning the frost on the fields into something that looked like glass. When we reached the exit for Ashland, my mother sat up straighter. Her hands were in her lap. She was twisting her fingers together, the way she did when she was nervous. "Why are we here, Tess?" she asked. "You'll see." I drove through the town, past the diner where she had worked for 30 years, past the high school where I had walked the halls with my head down, trying to be invisible, past the American Legion Hall where I had found my father at a card table when I was 12. I turned onto Maple Street. My mother's breath caught. I heard it, a small sound, like something breaking. I pulled up to the house. I parked. I turned off the engine. We sat there for a moment. The house was in front of us. The paint was peeling. The porch sagged. The maple tree reached toward the roof, its branches bare against the grey sky. "Tess," my mother said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why are we here?" I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the key. I held it out to her. "I bought it," I said. "It's ours again." She stared at the key. She didn't take it. She stared at it like it was something she had seen in a dream, something she had forgotten she was looking for. "You bought the house," she said. Not a question, a statement, something she was trying to make real by saying it out loud. "I bought the house. It's ours. It's yours. Whatever you want to do with it. But it's ours again." She reached out. Her hand was shaking. Her fingers touched the key. She didn't take it. She just touched it, like she was making sure it was real. "How?" she asked. "How did you—" "I saved. I worked. I waited. And when I had enough, I bought it." She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. Her face was the same face I had seen in the rearview mirror 15 years ago, watching the house disappear. Only now, the house was here. It was right here. "You did this for me," she said. "I did this for us." She took the key. She closed her fingers around it. She held it against her chest, like it was something precious, something that could be taken away if she wasn't careful. "Can we go inside?" she asked. I smiled. "That's why we're here." We walked up the path together. My mother's hand was in mine. Her fingers were cold. She was shaking, but she was walking. She was walking toward the door of the house that had been hers, that had been taken from her, that was hers again. I unlocked the door. It stuck the way it had always stuck. I had to lean into it, the way I had leaned into it when I was a child, using my shoulder to push it open. The door swung open. The house was dark. It was dusty. It smelled like time. But my mother walked inside, like she was walking into a room she had left 15 minutes ago, not 15 years. She walked to the living room. She stood in the center of it. She looked at the walls, the floors, the windows. She touched the door frame. She touched the mantel. She touched the spot where the clock had hung, the clock that was now in her apartment in Boston. "It's smaller than I remember," she said. I thought the same thing. She laughed, a small laugh, something that surprised her. When you're young, everything is bigger. Your whole world fits in one house, and when it's taken from you, you think you'll never find anything that big again. She walked to the kitchen. She stood in front of the window, the one she used to open when she was baking, letting the smell of bread drift out into the yard. "I used to stand here," she said, "every morning. I'd make coffee. I'd watch the sun come up. I'd think about my grandmother, standing in this same spot, watching the same sun, thinking about the same things." What did she think about? My mother turned. She leaned against the counter. She thought about survival, about making sure her children had something she didn't have, about holding on to what was hers. She was fierce, your grandmother. She didn't let anyone take anything from her. I looked at my mother, at the woman who had let my father take everything, at the woman who had sat at this kitchen table, reading the eviction notice, not crying, at the woman who had walked away from this house and never looked back. "You didn't let him take everything," I said. "You kept me." She smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "I kept you." "And you kept this house. You brought it back." "I brought it back for you." She walked to me. She took my hands. Her hands were cold, her hands were chapped. Her hands were the same hands that had held me when I was a baby, that had taught me to bake bread, that had packed her grandmother's china into cardboard boxes 15 years ago. "I don't need the house, Tess," she said. "I need you. I've always needed you. The house was just, it was just a place. You're the thing that matters." I started to cry. I don't know why. I had held it together for so long. Through the years of working, saving, waiting, through the moment I signed the papers, through the moment I walked through the door, but standing in the kitchen of the house on Maple Street, with my mother's hands in mine, I couldn't hold it anymore. "We're here," I said. "We're home." She held me. She held me the way she had held me when I was a child, when I was scared, when I didn't know how to be brave. She held me like she was never going to let go. We spent the afternoon walking through the house. My mother pointed out things I had forgotten. The spot in the hallway where I had fallen and scraped my knee, the corner of the living room where we had put the Christmas tree every year, the place in the backyard where my father had tried to build a garden and given up when the tomatoes didn't grow. She told me stories about her grandmother Eleanor, who had bought the house with $800 and a fierce determination, about her father who had died when she was young, leaving her with nothing but memories of a man who had worked hard and loved hard and never taken anything that wasn't his, about my father, the man she had married, the man she had loved, the man she had finally stopped waiting for. "I loved him," she said. "We were sitting on the porch, the one that needed new boards, looking at the maple tree that was older than both of us. I loved him so much, and I thought if I loved him enough, he would change. I thought if I held on long enough, he would become the man I believed he could be. He didn't. He didn't. He couldn't. And I spent too many years waiting for something that was never going to happen." She looked at me. Her eyes were clear. The tears were gone. What was left was something I hadn't seen before. Peace. "I'm not angry anymore," she said. I thought I would be. I thought I would carry that anger for the rest of my life. But standing here in this house with you, I'm not angry. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the years I had in this house. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you brought me back. "He took this house from you," I said. "He took everything. He took the house. He didn't take me. He didn't take you. And in the end, that's what matters. The house is just a building. the people inside it, that's what matters. I looked at her, at this woman who had worked double shifts at the diner, who had hidden eviction notices from me, who had packed her grandmother's china into cardboard boxes and walked away from everything she had. "You're like her," I said. "You're like Eleanor. You're fierce. You just didn't know it." She smiled. It was a real smile, the kind of smile that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere that has been waiting to be seen. "I learned it from her," she said, "and you learned it from me, and maybe someday if you have children, they'll learn it from you." I leaned my head on her shoulder. The porch creaked. The wind blew through the maple tree. The house settled around us, the way houses do when they've been waiting for someone to come home. We stayed until the sun went down. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. The streetlights came on. The neighbours, new neighbours, people I didn't recognise, went inside for dinner. The town was quiet, the way it had always been quiet. My mother stood up, she stretched, she looked at the house one more time. "What are you going to do with it?" she asked. "I don't know, I thought maybe you'd want to live here again. Come back home." She shook her head. "I'm not the same person I was when I left. And this house, it's not the same either. It's been waiting for us, but it's been waiting for us to become who we are now, not who we were." "Then what?" She looked at me. "What do you want to do with it?" I thought about it, about the years of working, saving, waiting, about the moment I signed the papers, about the key in my hand. "I want to fix it," I said. "I want to make it what it was. New roof, new porch, paint, windows. I want to bring it back." And then I looked at the house. At the peeling paint, the sagging porch, the windows that hadn't been cleaned in years. I looked at the maple tree, older now, taller, its branches scraping the roof. I looked at the porch where my mother was standing, the same porch where I'd sat with her when I was a child, watching the stars come out. And then I want it to be a place where people who have lost things can come back, a place where they can remember who they are, a place that's theirs. My mother looked at me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I could see it in her face. The pride, the love, the fierce joy of a woman who had lost everything and found it again in the daughter she had raised. "That's a good thing to do," she said. "That's a good thing." I drove her back to Boston that night. She slept most of the way. The radio played something soft. The highway stretched out in front of us, dark and endless. I thought about the house, about the work it needed, about the years it had stood empty, waiting, about the people who had lived in it between the time we left and the time I bought it back, strangers who didn't know about Eleanor, about my mother, about the girl who had watched it disappear in the rearview mirror. I thought about my father, about the man who had taken it from us, about the man who had never been able to stop taking, even when he had already taken everything. I wondered where he was. I wondered if he was still gambling, still losing, still promising that this time would be different. I wondered if he ever thought about the house, about the family he had left behind. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. The house was mine now. The past was the past, and I was finally, after all these years, free. The renovations took 6 months. I hired contractors. I oversaw every detail. I replaced the roof. I fixed the porch. I sanded the floors. I painted the walls. I found a clock that looked like the one my mother had taken, and I hung it in the same spot in the living room. I kept the things that couldn't be replaced, the maple tree, the window in the kitchen, the stairs that groaned in the middle, the door that stuck in the summer. My mother came to see the progress every few weeks. She walked through the house with her hands in her pockets, not touching anything, just looking. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. I could see it in her face. The way her eyes softened when she saw the kitchen. The way her breath caught when she walked into the living room. The way she stood at the window, the same window where she had stood every morning, watching the sun come up. "You're bringing it back," she said one day. The walls were freshly painted. The floors were sanded. The light was coming through the windows, clean and bright. "I'm bringing it back." She touched the wall, she touched the mantel, she touched the spot where the clock hung, the new clock that looked like the old one, the one that marked the hours of her life. "It's the same," she said, But it's different. It's ours, I said. That's what matters. She smiled. She walked to the door. She looked back at the house, the way she had looked at it 15 years ago. Only this time, she wasn't leaving. She was coming back. I'll be here, she said, whenever you need me. The day the renovations were finished, I walked through the house alone. It was morning. The sun was coming through the kitchen window. The floors were clean. The walls were bright. The house was quiet, the way it had always been quiet in the morning, before the day started, before the world woke up. I walked to the front door. I opened it. I stepped onto the porch. The new porch, the one I had built with my own hands, with the help of contractors who didn't know what this house meant to me. I stood there for a long time. The street was quiet. The maple tree was starting to bud, the first green of spring pushing through the branches. The air was cold, but it was the kind of cold that comes before something new, something that has been waiting to be born. I thought about Eleanor, about the young woman who had bought this house with $800, about the life she had built here, the family she had raised, the legacy she had left behind. I thought about my mother, about the woman who had lost this house and walked away without looking back, about the woman who had raised me to be someone who could bring it back. I thought about my father, about the man who had taken this house from us, about the man who had never been able to stop taking, about the man who was gone now, who had been gone for a long time, who had left behind nothing but the hole where something used to be. I thought about the key in my pocket, the key I had held in my hand at the bank, the key I had given to my mother, the key that was mine now, that would always be mine. I pulled it out, I looked at it. The metal was warm from my skin. The light caught the edge of it, the teeth, the part that opened the door. I closed my hand around it, I held it tight. I had brought it back, the house that was taken from us, the house that was never supposed to be lost, the house that was mine again. And standing on the porch, looking at the maple tree, the street, the town that had been my home, I felt something I hadn't felt in 15 years, something I thought I would never feel again. I felt like I was home. Here's where I need to pause, because what happened next, the letter that came, the truth about my father, the thing I learned that changed everything I thought I knew, that's the part of this story I didn't see coming. If you've ever thought you knew the whole story and found out you were wrong, in the comments, let me know you understand. The house was finished, the renovations were complete, the walls were painted, the floors were sanded, the roof was new. The porch no longer sagged. The windows were clean. The kitchen was bright with morning light. I stood in the doorway, looking at the space that had been empty for so long. It wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting. Waiting for someone to fill it. Waiting for the next chapter. My mother came to see it the day after the contractors left. She walked through each room slowly, her hands in her pockets, her eyes taking in every detail. She stopped in the kitchen, at the window where she had stood every morning for 30 years. It's beautiful, she said. You made it beautiful. I made it ours. She turned to me. Her eyes were wet. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, the way she had looked at me when I was a child, when I brought home a good report card, when I told her I was going to college, when I became someone she never thought she would have the chance to be. You did this, she said. You did all of this. We did this. You and me. And Eleanor. She started it. We finished it. My mother walked to the front door. She opened it. She stepped onto the porch. The maple tree was in full leaf now, the branches heavy with green, casting shadows on the lawn. The street was quiet. The neighbours were at work. The town was the same town it had always been, slow and steady and unchanging. What are you going to do with it? She asked again. The same question she'd asked 6 months ago, when the house was still broken, still waiting. I don't know yet, I said. I thought maybe you'd want to live here. She shook her head. I have a life in Boston. I have friends. I have a job. I have you. I don't need to live here to have what I need. Then what? She looked at me. You could live here. You could come home. I laughed. I have a business in Boston. I have clients. You could start something new. You could do here what you did there. You could make this place something. I looked at the house, at the porch, the maple tree, the street where I had learned to ride a bike, where I had walked to school, where I had dreamed of leaving. I don't know, I said. I don't know if I can come back. I don't know if I'm the same person who left. She put her hand on my arm. You're not the same person. You're better. And this place That's not the same either. You made it better. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't come back to who you were. Maybe you come back to who you are now. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. The idea of coming back to Ashland, of living in this house, of being the person who stayed instead of the person who left, it was too big, too much. I wasn't ready to think about it. My mother seemed to understand. She squeezed my arm. She walked back inside. She left me on the porch, alone with the maple tree and the memories and the future I wasn't ready to imagine. The letter came a week later. I was in my office in Boston, going over contracts, when my assistant knocked on the door. She handed me an envelope, plain white, no return address, my name and address typed on the front. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was shaky. It was the handwriting of someone who had been sick for a long time, someone whose hands didn't work the way they used to. But I recognized it. I recognized it immediately. Dear Tess, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you have every reason to throw this letter away without reading it. But I need you to know something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't gamble away the house. Not the way you think. I know you won't believe me. I know you have 15 years of reasons not to. But I need you to read this. I need you to know the truth. And then you can hate me. You can throw this letter away. You can forget I ever existed. But at least you'll know. I'm in a hospice in Hartford. I don't have much time. The doctors say maybe a few weeks. I don't want you to come. I don't deserve to see you. But I needed to tell you the truth before I go. Your father, Daniel Brennan. I read the letter 3 times. I sat at my desk, holding the paper, reading the words over and over. I didn't gamble away the house. Not the way you think. What did that mean? What other way was there? He took the deed. He put it on a poker table. He lost it. That was the story. That was the story I had carried for 15 years. I called my mother. Mum, I said, I got a letter. From Dad. She was quiet for a long time. I heard her breathing. I heard the sounds of her apartment in the background, the same sounds I had heard 1,000 times. What does it say? She asked. He says he didn't gamble away the house. Not the way we think. Another silence, longer this time. Mum, what does that mean? What is he talking about? She didn't answer right away. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer, older, the voice of someone who had been carrying something for a very long time. He's in hospice, she said. Did he tell you that? Yes, he said he doesn't have much time. You should go see him. You should hear what he has to say. I stared at the letter, at the shaky handwriting, at the words that were supposed to change everything. Do you know what he's talking about? Do you know the truth? My mother was quiet again. I could feel her on the other end of the line, the weight of something she had been holding for 15 years. I know what he told me, she said, but it's not my story to tell. It's his. If you want to know, you have to hear it from him. I drove to Hartford the next day. The hospice was a low building on the edge of the city, surrounded by trees that were turning gold with the fall. The parking lot was almost empty. The entrance was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes from places where people go to wait. I gave my name at the front desk. The woman there looked at me with kind eyes. She had the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Room 217, she said. He's been asking for you. I walked down the hall. The floors were polished, the walls were beige, the doors were closed. Behind each door, someone was waiting, someone was saying goodbye. I stopped outside room 217. I could see through the window. There was a bed, a man in the bed. He was thin, his hair was white, his face was pale. He was sleeping, or pretending to sleep, his eyes closed, his hands folded on the blanket. I opened the door. I walked in. The room smelled like medicine and flowers. There was a vase on the windowsill, roses that were starting to wilt. There was a chair by the bed, the kind that folds out for family who stay the night. There was a photograph on the bedside table. I looked at it. It was a picture of me. From high school, my senior picture, the one my mother had sent out with graduation announcements. He had kept it. All these years he had kept it. I sat down in the chair. I looked at him. His face was thinner than I remembered. His hands were the same, the hands that had dealt cards, that had reached for me when I was 12, that had taken everything and given nothing back. He opened his eyes. He looked at me. For a moment he didn't seem to know who I was. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused. Then they cleared. He saw me. "Tess," he said. His voice was weak, a whisper. "You came. You asked me to." He nodded. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the photograph on the table. He looked at me. "I didn't think you would. I wouldn't have blamed you if you didn't." I didn't say anything. I waited. I had waited 15 years for this. I could wait a little longer. "The house," he said. "You know about the house. I bought it back. It's ours again." He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "I know," he said. "I heard. Someone told me. I don't know who, but I heard you brought it back. You did what I couldn't do. You took it away. I brought it back." He opened his eyes. He looked at me. There was something in his face I had never seen before. Not shame, not fear, something else. "I didn't gamble it away," he said. "Not the way you think. You said that in your letter. What does it mean?" He was quiet for a long time. I heard the machines humming. I heard the footsteps in the hallway. I heard the sound of someone in the next room, crying, the way people cry when they're saying goodbye to something they can't get back. "There was a man," he said. "Vincent Russo, the man who took the house. I know who he was. He didn't take it because I lost it in a card game. He took it because I owed him money. A lot of money. Money I borrowed from him, years ago. Money I couldn't pay back." I stared at him. "You borrowed money from a gambler?" "I borrowed money from a loan shark. A man who gave money to people who couldn't get it anywhere else. People like me. People who had made mistakes. People who thought they could win it back. And you couldn't. I couldn't. I kept losing. I kept borrowing, and every time I borrowed, the interest got higher, the payments got bigger, and I couldn't." He stopped, his voice cracked. "I couldn't stop. I couldn't tell your mother. I couldn't tell anyone. I was ashamed. I was so ashamed. So you gave him the house." "I didn't give it to him. He took it. He said if I didn't give him the deed, he would hurt your mother. He would hurt you. He said he knew where you went to school. He knew where your mother worked. He knew everything." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You're saying he threatened us. He threatened you. Every day. He called the house. He followed your mother. He waited outside your school. He said if I didn't pay, he would make sure you never made it to college. He said he would." He stopped. He couldn't finish. "You should have gone to the police." "I should have. I know I should have. But I was scared. I was so scared. And I thought if I could just win enough to pay him back, everything would be okay. I thought if I could just win one more time, I could make it right." "But you couldn't. I couldn't. I never could." And then it was too late. He had the deed. He had the house. And I had nothing. I sat back in my chair. I looked at him, this man who had been my father, this man who had taken everything from us, this man who was now telling me that he had been trying to protect us. "Why didn't you tell us?" I asked. "Why didn't you tell Mum? Why did you let her think you gambled it away?" He closed his eyes. His face was wet. "Because it was easier. Easier for her to think I was a gambler than to know I was a coward. Easier for her to hate me for what I did than to be afraid of what he would do. You let her think it was your fault." "It was my fault. I borrowed the money. I made the choices. I didn't go to the police. I didn't protect you. I did everything wrong. But I didn't gamble away the house. I lost it because I was trying to save you." I looked at him. At the man who had made promises he couldn't keep. At the man who had disappeared when we needed him most. At the man who was lying in a hospice bed, dying, trying to make himself into someone he had never been. "You should have told us," I said. "You should have told us the truth. I know I should have, but I was too scared. I was always too scared. And by the time I wasn't scared anymore, it was too late. You were gone, your mother was gone, and I was alone." He started to cry, not the quiet tears I had seen before, something else, something that came from somewhere deep, somewhere that had been waiting for 15 years. "I'm sorry, Tess. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for what I didn't do. I'm sorry for leaving. I'm sorry for everything." I sat in the chair. I watched him cry. I didn't reach for him. I didn't comfort him. I didn't know how. I had spent 15 years being angry at this man, 15 years believing he had taken everything from us because he couldn't stop playing cards, and now he was telling me it was something else, something worse. something that wasn't just weakness. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Why now?" He wiped his face. He looked at me. His eyes were red, his face was pale. He looked like someone who had been waiting for a long time to say something he should have said years ago. "Because I'm dying, and I want you to know the truth. I want you to know that I loved you. I loved you so much, and everything I did, every mistake I made because I was trying to protect you. I was trying to give you something I didn't have, and I failed. I failed at everything, but I loved you. I never stopped loving you." I sat there. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. The man who had taken everything from us was telling me he had done it to protect us. The man who had disappeared when we needed him most was telling me he had been trying to keep us safe. It didn't make sense. It didn't fit with the story I had been telling myself for 15 years. The story where he was the villain. The story where he took everything because he was weak, because he was selfish, because he couldn't stop wanting what he couldn't have. But now he was telling me a different story. A story where he was scared, a story where he was trying to save us, a story where he failed. I didn't know what to do with that story. I didn't know if I believed it. I didn't know if I could believe anything he said. But I looked at him, at his thin face, at his shaking hands, at the photograph of me on the bedside table, and I thought about the house, about the years I spent working to buy it back, about the moment I held the keys in my hand, about the look on my mother's face when I gave them to her. I had brought it back. I had done what he couldn't do. I brought the house back, I said. "It's ours again. Mum's and mine. We fixed it. It's beautiful." He nodded. His eyes were wet. I heard. Someone told me. I don't know who, but I heard. "You did what I couldn't do. I did it for her. I did it for us. I know you did." He looked at me. His eyes were clear now. The clouds were gone. "You're not like me, Tess. You're like your mother. You're like Eleanor. You're fierce. You don't let anyone take anything from you." I stood up. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't sit there anymore, listening to him tell me things I didn't know how to hear. "Tess," he said, "wait." I stopped. I didn't turn around. "There's something else. In the box I left with your mother, before I left. There's something in it. Something I want you to have." I turned. "What box?" "The box I gave her, before I left. I told her not to open it. I told her it was just old papers. But there's something in there. Something I want you to have." "What is it?" He smiled, a small smile, the kind of smile that comes from someone who has been holding something for a long time and is finally letting it go. "The deed," he said, "the original deed, from Eleanor, when she bought the house. I found it, years ago. I kept it. I wanted to give it back. I wanted to make it right, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to come back." I stared at him. "You kept the deed? All these years?" "I kept it. I wanted you to have it. I wanted you to know where you came from. I wanted you to know that the house was always yours, even when it wasn't." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I walked out of the room. I walked down the hall. I walked out of the hospice into the parking lot. I sat in my car and I put my head on the steering wheel and I cried. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't. I drove home. I drove to Boston. I drove to my mother's apartment. She was waiting for me. She opened the door. She looked at my face. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. "He told you," she said. "He told me. About Vincent Russo, about the threats, about the deed." She nodded. She walked to the closet. She pulled out a box, a small box, wooden, old, the kind of box that holds things that matter. "He gave this to me before he left," she said. "He told me not to open it. He said it was just old papers. I never opened it. I couldn't. I was too angry, too hurt. I put it in the closet and I forgot about it." She handed me the box. I opened it. Inside were papers, old papers, yellowed with age, a birth certificate, a marriage license, a photograph of my parents on their wedding day, young and happy, before everything fell apart. And at the bottom, folded carefully, the deed, the original deed, Eleanor's deed, the one she had signed in 1922 when she bought the house for $800. I held it. The paper was thin, the ink was faded, but I could read the words. "Eleanor Brennan, for the sum of $800, does hereby purchase the property at 47 Maple Street, Ashland, Massachusetts. I looked at my mother. She was crying, quietly, the way she always cried, when she thought no one was watching. He kept it, I said. All those years, he kept it. He kept it because he couldn't let go, she said. He kept it because he wanted to give it back. He wanted to make it right, but he didn't know how. I looked at the deed. I looked at Eleanor's signature, small and careful, the signature of a woman who had worked hard for something she wanted to keep. I thought about her, standing in the kitchen, watching the sun come up, holding on to the house that was hers. I thought about my father, about the man who had taken it from us, about the man who had been trying to protect us, about the man who had kept this deed, this piece of paper, this thing that was supposed to make it right. He's dying, I said. My mother nodded. I know. I don't know what to feel. I don't know if I believe him. I don't know if I can forgive him. She put her hand on mine. Her hand was warm. Her hand was steady. You don't have to know, she said. You don't have to figure it out right now. You can just let it be, let it sit, let it become whatever it's going to become. What if I can't forgive him? What if I can't let it go? She looked at me. Her eyes were the same eyes that had looked at me across the kitchen table when I was 12, when I asked her why she stayed. Only now, they were different. They were free. You don't have to forgive him to be free, she said. You don't have to let go of the anger to move forward. You just have to let yourself be who you are. And who you are is someone who brought back something that was taken. Who you are is someone who held the keys. Who you are is someone who made something new out of something broken. I looked at the deed. I looked at Eleanor's signature. I looked at my mother's face. I want to go to the house, I said. I want to put it there, in the kitchen, where she stood, where you stood, where I stood. My mother smiled. That's a good place for it. We went to Ashland the next day. We drove together, the way we had driven before, only this time we weren't leaving. We were coming back. The house was waiting. The maple tree was gold with fall. The porch was solid under our feet. The door opened without sticking, the way I had fixed it, the way it was supposed to open. We walked to the kitchen. The light was coming through the window, the same window where my mother had stood every morning, the same window where Eleanor had stood before her. I took the deed out of the box. I unfolded it. I placed it on the counter, where it could be seen, where it could be read, where it could remind us of where we came from. My mother stood beside me. She looked at the deed. She looked at the window. She looked at the house that was hers again. She would be proud, my mother said. Eleanor, she would be proud of you. She would be proud of you, I said. You're the one who kept it. You're the one who stayed. We stood there in the kitchen of the house on Maple Street, mother and daughter, two women who had lost something and found it again. I went back to the hospice a week later. My father was weaker. His eyes were closed, his breathing was shallow, the machines hummed, the flowers on the windowsill were fresh, someone had brought new ones, roses, red this time. I sat in the chair, I looked at him, I looked at the photograph of me on the bedside table, I looked at the man who had taken everything and given nothing back, the man who had been trying to protect us, the man who had kept the deed for 15 years. He opened his eyes. He saw me. Tess, he said, you came back. I came back. He smiled, a small smile, tired but real. Did you find it? The deed? I found it. I put it in the house, in the kitchen, where it belongs. He nodded. His eyes were wet. Good. That's good. I sat there. I didn't say anything for a long time. I didn't know what to say. I had spent 15 years being angry at this man. I had spent 15 years building something without him, and now he was here, dying, and I didn't know how to say goodbye. Dad, I said. He looked at me. His eyes were clear. He was waiting. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can forget what you did. But I want you to know something. I brought the house back. I held the keys. And I know now that you kept something too. You kept the deed. You kept it for us. And that means something. It means something to me. He started to cry. He didn't try to stop. The tears ran down his face, down the thin cheeks, down the neck of the hospital gown. I'm sorry, Tess. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I know, I said. I know you are. I reached out. I took his hand. His hand was cold. His hand was thin. His hand was the same hand that had dealt cards, that had reached for me when I was 12, that had taken everything and given nothing back. But I held it. I held it because he was my father. I held it because he was dying. I held it because I was tired of being angry. I was tired of carrying something that was too heavy to carry. I'm not like you, I said. I'm not going to let this destroy me. I'm going to keep the house. I'm going to make it something. And I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be more than okay. He nodded. His hand tightened around mine. You're like Eleanor, he said. You're fierce. You don't let anyone take anything from you. I learned it from her, and from Mum, and from you, I guess. I learned what not to do. He laughed. It was a small laugh, weak, but it was real. That's something. That's more than something. I sat with him until he fell asleep. His hand went slack in mine. His breathing evened out. The machines hummed. The light through the window was soft, the kind of light that comes at the end of the day, when everything is quiet, when everything is waiting. I stood up. I looked at him one more time. I looked at the photograph of me on the bedside table. I looked at the man who had been my father. Goodbye, Dad, I said. I walked out. I didn't look back. He died 3 days later. I got the call from the hospice. A nurse, someone I had never met, telling me that Daniel Brennan had passed away peacefully, that he wasn't in pain, that he had asked for me at the end. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't need to. I had said what I needed to say. I had held his hand. I had let him go. My mother went. She didn't tell me she was going. She just went. She came back the next day and didn't say anything about it. I didn't ask. We didn't talk about him after that. We didn't need to. He was gone. The house was ours, and we were finally, after all these years, free. I moved to Ashland that spring. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. I had a business in Boston. I had clients. I had a life. But the house was waiting. The house was mine. And I was tired of being the person who left. I wanted to be the person who stayed. I started a new business. Real estate development, the same thing I had done in Boston, only here the buildings were smaller, the stakes were lower, the people were the same people I had grown up with. I renovated old houses, I fixed up the buildings on Main Street, I brought life back to a town that had been dying for years. My mother came to visit. She sat on the porch, the one I had rebuilt, and watched the maple tree turn green, then gold, then bare. She drank coffee from the kitchen, the same kitchen where she had stood every morning for 30 years. You're happy here, she said one day. It wasn't a question. I'm happy here, I said. I didn't know I could be happy here. I thought I had to leave to be someone. But I didn't. I just had to come back. She smiled. She looked at the house. She looked at the porch. She looked at the street where she had grown up, where she had raised me, where she had lost everything and found it again. You're like her, she said. Eleanor, she never left. She stayed. She made this place what it was. I'm like you, I said. I left, and then I came back. That's what you did. You left, and you came back. Not to the house, but to me. You always came back to me. She put her hand on mine. Her hand was warm, her hand was steady, her hand was the same hand that had held me when I was a child, that had packed her grandmother's china into cardboard boxes, that had given me the keys to a house that wasn't ours anymore. I'll always come back to you, she said. You're my home, you always were. Here's what I've learnt. The house was never just a house, it was a promise. It was a promise that Eleanor made, that my mother kept, that I fulfilled. It was a promise that no matter how much you lose, you can find your way back, you can rebuild, you can hold the keys. My father took it from us, or he lost it, or he gave it away to protect us. I don't know, I'll never know. The truth is somewhere in between, somewhere in the space between the man I thought he was and the man he was trying to be. But I have the deed, I have the keys, I have the house, and I have something my father never had. I have the strength to hold on to what matters. I have the courage to let go of what doesn't. I have the love of a woman who never stopped being my mother, even when she had nothing else to give. My name is Tess Brennan. I'm a real estate developer. I live in the house on Maple Street, the house my grandmother bought with $800, the house my father lost, the house I brought back. I hold the keys, I hold them in my hand. They are warm, they are heavy, they are mine, and I am home. If you've ever lost something you thought would always be yours, if you've ever had to rebuild from nothing, if you've ever held the keys to something that was taken from you, I see you. I know what you've been through, and I want you to know that you can find your way back. You can rebuild, you can hold the keys. It won't be the same, it will be different, but it will be yours, and that is enough. That is more than enough. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to let go of someone you loved, if you've ever had to find your way back to something you thought you'd lost, leave a comment, tell me your story, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. I have more stories to tell, and I want you to be here for them. My name is Tess Brennan. I hold the keys, and I am home.